You're listening to the Oddscast, the original UFC betting podcast that's straight to the point. Hosted by leading MMA oddsmaker Nick Kalikas and MMA journalist Brian Hemminger. They provide you the absolute best UFC betting info, picks, statistics, and analysis from the most respected authority in mixed martial arts betting. MMAOddsBreaker.com. Don't place your wagers without us.
Welcome to the Oddscast, presented by BetDSI. I'm Brian Hemminger, joined today by leading mixed martial arts oddsmaker Nick Kalikas to break down this Saturday's UFC on ESPN Plus 15 event, which takes place in Shenzhen, China. If you're unfamiliar with our format, Nick and I will break down the fight card from top to bottom, providing extensive analysis and a pick for each fight after doing our film study for the event. Looking back at our last event, Kyle Marley's premium bets for UFC 241 won 1.5 units overall. Kyle has his bets and fantasy MMA picks available now on MMAOddsBreaker.com. Back to the present, UFC on ESPN Plus 15 features an 11-fight card in total and will be aired on ESPN and ESPN Plus this Saturday morning. Let's dive right in. And just a reminder, this will be a bit of a quicker Oddscast due to being in a little bit of a rush with the event taking place earlier than normal. Now, kicking things off on ESPN is a women's bantamweight contest between Carol Rosa, who is 11-3, and Lara Prokopo, who is 6-0. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Getting into the betting line, Procopio open minus 165, Rosa at plus 125. And right now, checking out betdsi.eu, it is exactly a pick on Procopia's minus 110 and Rosa's minus 110 exactly. So two action coming into this fight, but a little bit more early on came in on Rosa as an underdog, obviously. Now, again, the sports books are starting to get max bets on both fighters, and it's staying at a pick 'em, and it's about right. This is going to be an interesting fight for sure. I actually lean Rosa a little bit here. I think Rosa is a little bit more well-rounded fighter. She has a little bit more experience. Basically, what this is going to come down to is, can Procopia get this fight to the ground? And if she can she utilize her strength, which is her submission game? She's definitely the better ground fighter overall. And Rosa, any deficiency she's had in the past, I mean, if any weakness, it's been her submission defense. Now, she has some submission offense and she has some wrestling, so she's not totally lost on the ground. Rosa's pretty solid, but if any advantage at all Procopia has, it is on the ground. So what you have here is Rosa probably wanting to stay on the feet, beat her up a little bit. Procopia does have a little bit of striking, but not on the level Rosa. Rosa's going to, I think, pick her apart a little bit, land a little bit harder, be a little bit more effective. If Rosa gets top position, I think she will be okay. But again, if she gets on her bottom and Procopio is on top, if she's able to utilize her slick ground game, then she could be in some serious trouble. So her ground dominance is why this line is staying at a pick 'em, because what you're getting is, again, somebody that specializes in submitting people, and you have somebody's weakness being that of a sub in Rosa. But I still think Rosa can probably keep this fight upright, and I like her experience and I like her technical skill set. Still a little bit farther along than Procopia at this time, so I'm going to pick her to win.
Yeah, Rosa is actually a teammate of Jessica Andrade, and Procopio, she enters the fight as a two-division champion out of Shudo, Brazil. So, these are both two very talented female fighters. And as Nick mentioned, yes, Rosa's the more well-rounded fighter. Procopio is better on the ground. But that's actually why I'm picking Procopio, because her biggest strength is Rosa's biggest weakness, with Rosa having been submitted a few times and Procopio being a high-level grappler. So I feel like the second this fight goes to the ground, Procopio is going to have the opportunity to put this away. Yes, Rosa's going to be a little bit bigger. Rosa's better on the feet. Rosa's better in most other areas of the fight, but she's not better than Procopio on the ground. And if and when this fight goes to the ground, that's where Procopio is going to shine. And I think the second it does go to the ground, Procopio is going to have a very good chance to get a submission. So I'm going to side with Procopio by submission. Now, sticking with the bantamweight division, we have Hailey Alatang, who is 12-7-1, taking on Dana Batgerel, who is 6-1. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Batagral opened at minus 175, the comeback on Alatang at plus 135. And right now what we're seeing over at BetDSI is Alatang at minus 115, the comeback on Batagral at minus 104. So line flipped, more action coming in Alatang's way early on. I get it. He is definitely the more complete fighter of the two. This is going to be a fun fight, by the way, in the bantamweight division. I mean, again, both these guys like to stand and bang. It's going to be an exciting fight. Alatang is a little bit more well-rounded. He's fast. He's explosive. He's got pretty good striking. He does go for some takedowns and has some ground and pound. And he's a little bit further along in development as a fighter overall. A little bit more experience. As a whole. And again, I think he's got a more complete game. But the problem with me here in this fight is exactly what we were talking about, similar but different in the last fight. Batagral is actually, his strength is his knockout power, and he's the type of fighter that likes to push forward and slug it out, and he does have a lot of power. Now, Alatang's been knocked out 3 times in his career, and if you look back at some of his fights, I mean, he's hittable, and he does get affected by heavy hitters at times as well. So even though Alatang is the better fighter, in my opinion, I think Batagral, his skill set here, he's stronger, he's going to be bigger, stronger, he's going to be able to probably keep this fight upright, and if he does so, he's going to be the one delivering the harder punishment on the feet, and I think he ends up finding Alatang's chin and putting him out. So in 3-round fight, I think Batagral has enough time to work and land that knockout punch, and I think he's probably going to be the one that gets it done here out of the two. So I know the action coming in Alatang, and I understand it. I can respect that he is the better fighter, no doubt, but to me, styles make fights, and the matchup here, I think Batagral is going to get the finish over Alatang by knockout.
Yeah, to me, the biggest difference between these guys is the fact that while Alatang does have a lot of power, Batagral can take a shot. I mean, he's shown to have a really good chin so far, and I don't think Alatang has as good of a chin. So when these guys are throwing down Batagral, I think he'll be a little bit busier. I think he'll have a little bit more volume striking, and I think if anybody gets hurt, it's probably going to be Alatang. Also, there's a possibility that Batagral can be shooting in for takedowns. He has a pretty good wrestling. I think he does have the edge in, if this does go to the ground, he'd have top position. So even though Alatang's a little bit younger, I think Batagral gets the job done. I think he can win by knockout or decision. So Batagral is going to be my pick. Now moving up to the lightweight division, we have Damir Ismagulov, who is 18-2, taking on Thiago Moises, who is 12-3. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Ismagulov opened minus 405, the comeback on Moises at plus 285. And right now what we're seeing at BetDSI is Ismagulov at minus 192, the comeback on Moises at plus 159. So line drop, more action coming in Moises' way. And I understand it. I mean, I tell you what, Ismagulov is a heck of a fighter. I think the guy is more than legit. I'm glad the UFC brought him in, and you could tell already by his UFC performance. I mean, his performances, the guy is a slick fighter. I mean, he has a well-rounded skill set. He has good striking. He's got takedown ability. He's got a good submission game, and not just your average skill set. Like, yeah, he's okay at this. I mean, he can beat you up on the feet. He can out wrestle you. He can dominate you on the ground as well. So the guy excels. He's above average. A lot of times I say, he's okay. The fighter's, solid everywhere, but there's nothing that he really excels at or nothing that he can dominate you with. Well, Ismagulov, that's not the case at all. I mean, he's, like I said, better than your average Joe across the board. So he's a very complete fighter, has a ton of experience against solid competition as well. So this is going to be a fun fight because what I've seen in Moises the last couple years now is a lot of improvement. Do you want to talk about another well-rounded fighter? Obviously, Moises' strength again is on the ground. He's got a good submission game, but he's developed his striking to the point where he's a threat on the feet as well, and he's constantly getting better. He's improving. He's getting more confidence with that striking, and he's getting more effective with it as well. His takedown defense is getting better. I think that's kind of an issue with him at times is he can get put on his back and controlled a little bit, and he does have good jiu-jitsu off his back, but I think Ismagulov is going to be fine kind of neutralizing that and staying safe if it does hit the floor. So this is going to be a good fight. I think, honestly, it's going to be a lot closer than everybody thinks, and it was at 4-1. It was definitely a dog or pass situation, and it still might be at this spot because I think we're going to see a 29-28 competitive, maybe split decision type of fight. This is going to be one of the hardest fights Ismagulov has had in a long time. I do think he wins it, so I'm going to give him the edge because I do think he's farther ahead of Moises at this time, but the improvement Moises is making between fights, I think he's going to be game here, and I think this is going to be a really close fight. So all of you guys that came in early, gobbled up that plus money on Moises, I think it was the right move, and it was the right way to go. Now let's see how it plays out, win or lose still at that price when you're getting, the price basically got cut in half. So there was definitely some good value, win or lose in this spot, but hopefully you guys could do all right, and the guy comes through for all those that have bet him. But as far as the pure pick goes, again, I think Ismagulov is just a little bit further ahead, and I have to side with him as far as the pick goes. But at the betting window, I wouldn't lay the chalk.
And I'm going to say I think it's going to be a little bit easier for Ismagulov. He's just so aggressive and active and constantly looking for takedowns. I just see Moises being very defensive in this fight, very similar to his UFC debut against Dariush. Ismagulov just kind of takes Dariush's technique and adds an extreme amount of aggression. So I just don't see where Moises is going to have those openings to either counter or sweep or get top position or really get a lot going in general, because Ismagulov's just going to be in his face the whole time. Now, also, in terms of a decision, I definitely don't see Moises winning a decision. I don't even see him winning a round. The only way I see Moises winning this fight is if he catches Ismagulov in a submission. So if you're going to bet Moises, why not just take the prop and go for Moises by submission? You'll get way better odds, at least in my opinion, because if this fight goes to decision, and I think it will, Ismagulov is just going to be smothering Moises for 3 straight rounds, repeated takedowns, and then trying to just utilize a very strong top control game and good submission defense to stay out of trouble. But if he does dive into something like a triangle or a guillotine choke or something, there is an opportunity for Moises to get a submission off of his back. So that's how Moises wins, in my opinion. But if he doesn't do that, then I think Ismagulov steamrolls. So Ismagulov's going to be my pick. Now, moving on to the light heavyweight division, in a pair of prospects, we have Da Un Jung, who is 11-2, taking on Kadis Ibragimov, who is 8-0. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Ibragimov opened minus 365, the comeback on Zhang at plus 255. Right now, currently over at BetDSI, we are seeing Ibragimov currently at minus 263, the comeback on Zhang at plus 213. So line margins have tightened up, more action coming in Zhang's way. A lot of people believing in that power Zhang has. I mean, he is strong, he pushes forward, has a lot of KO power. If he gets on top of you on the ground, he could deliver some serious punishment. But as far as a complete fighter, I think, again, Ibragimov is a little bit further ahead. He is the type of fighter, has a little bit of power in the feet. He's okay. He's serviceable on the feet. He could definitely, exchange with people and have a little bit of success. But I think it's more so his takedown game and his ability to get the fight to the ground. And once he's on the ground, I mean, the punishment that he delivers and the positioning that he gets, and he does look for some submissions as well. So he starts to go to work. So that's what you're going to see here, I think, overall. I question Zhang's takedown defense as a whole. I'm not really that sold on it. I think what we're going to see here is Zhang holding his own, obviously, on the feet and being a threat, but Ibragimov is going to be the one looking for the takedown and looking to do damage on the ground. So it's hard not to side with him at this point. As far as the betting window goes, I understand, again, the early action coming in the dog. Zhang is probably a lot better than most of us are thinking at this point, again, without, still being raw and still developing, without still getting where you want to be with him at this point. He's still going to get better. He's still going to improve, and he's still got a long way to go. So I think Zhang is going to be a threat, but I still believe Ibragimov is the guy that's going to get this done. He's going to take the fight to the floor and probably finish the fight on the ground. I mean, he has really slick submission game. I mean, just unorthodox the way he goes about it at times as well. So I would stay away from it at the betting window, but I'm going to pick Ibragimov to win this fight.
And I'm right with you. Zhang is talented. He has a lot of power. But I think that's really where a lot of his best strengths end. Ibragimov has faced better competition. Ibragimov is the better grappler. Ibragimov is the more experienced fighter against better fighters. And in this fight, I just think Ibragimov, the second he gets top position, it's probably going to be over. You look at Ibragimov, what he's been able to do, and consistently when he gets top position, he's either dropping ground and pound, looking for the finish with top position from strikes, or he's looking for a finish, whether it's advancing to top position to a dominant position, getting a couple rear naked chokes, or he's even pulled off a bulldog choke. So he's either looking for your neck or he's looking to pound your face in. And I just don't think Zhang has the experience or technique to escape if he gets put in a bad position. I just think he's a little bit too raw at this point in his career. And unless he clips Ibragimov on the feet, I think Ibragimov steamrolls here. So I'm going to pick Ibragimov. I think he wins relatively handily. Now, dropping down to the bantamweight division, we have Andre Sukumtat, who is 13-7, taking on Su Madaraj, who is 11-4. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Sukmantat minus 245, Madarji plus 175. That was the opening line. Right now, what you're seeing over at BetDSI, Sukmantat minus 156, Madarji plus 129. So again, line margins have tightened up a little bit more action coming in on Madarji early on. But again, people are betting Sukmantat, and they will continue to do so as well. This is going to be another good fight. I mean, Sukmantat, I think, is obviously the people that are betting fights and the people that have been following the sport can depend on a little bit more. The guy's tough, man. I mean, he's a very solid out. He's faced some pretty solid competition in the UFC thus far, and he's hung in there. He's had some tight fights, of course. We know that. I mean, but at the same time, he's showed us when it's not a close decision that he's got the knockout power. He's got the skill set to finish people as well. So Sukmantat is definitely a very tough fighter, very tough out. He's strong physically. He's going to have a little bit more power than Madarji in this fight here as well. And he's got pure knockout power. So he's a finisher, man. He can be. Again, if he doesn't, then typically speaking, he does fairly well and at least makes it a close competitive decision. But that's a problem with Sukmantat as well. I do think he slows down in round 2 and round 3 because he puts so much into his defense, keeping the fight upright in most cases, or putting in, the knockout power that he has. Now, Madarji, on the other hand, man, he's a fun fighter to watch. I mean, he's got some serious skill on the feet. The guy is wild, but effective in that wildness. I mean, he's got spinning attacks. He's got good knees. He's got good timing. He's got a little bit of length. I mean, it's just the angles that he uses and the way that he doesn't look like he's a powerhouse, but with the precision and the accuracy and the technique that he does deliver the punishment, I mean, he's very effective. I mean, the guy, that's why he's got so many knockout wins on his resume. He gets top position on the ground. He could deliver some punishment there as well. And then if you look at it, I mean, I really wasn't expecting his ground game to be as good as it was, really. If you look at his resume, he's got 3 submission losses. So that's the problem. I mean, if he does get in a bad spot on the ground against high-level grapplers have beaten him, I mean, so they've gotten position on him and have been able to choke him out. But outside of that, his ground game is really not that bad. It was better than I thought it would be. I mean, so he's capable of getting the fight to the floor at times as well. I don't know if he's going to be able to take Sukmantat down, but I mean, what I'm saying is he has capable chokes. So even in a scramble or whatnot, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some offense on the ground from Madarji as well. So this should be an exciting fight. I think it's actually catered more. It's basically a striker versus striker matchup if you're really looking at it, how the matchup is. And I think the better striker overall and a little bit more effective will be Madarji, even though he doesn't have the pure one-punch knockout power. I mean, let's face it, both these guys I think can basically take each other out on the feet, no doubt. But I think Madarji, I like what I see with his diversity on the feet, and I think he probably does get it done. Striker versus striker, give me the dog on Madarji here.
And I'm right with you in the fact that if this stays standing for 3 straight rounds, it's anybody's game because both fighters, Madarji and Sukhamtat, are talented strikers. Both have some power. Both can land strong combinations. Both can mix it up. So basically, it's almost a complete toss-up if it stays standing for 3 rounds. But I'm not convinced that it will stay standing for 3 rounds because if you watch Sukhamtat fight, even though he is a solid striker that consistently faces guys that aren't great strikers, he is always, for some reason, battling a compulsion to shoot for takedowns. And it's cost him fights. But this time around, if he actually gives into that compulsion, it will help him. I mean, when he had O'Malley basically on one leg, he kept shooting for takedowns, allowed O'Malley to survive to the 3rd round and ended up losing a decision. But if he actually shoots for takedowns this time, mixes up his striking and takedowns, I think it'll put Madarji at least on the defensive enough that Sukhamtat will win the stand-up because Madarji will be thinking about the takedowns. And then if Madarji gets anything going, Sukhamtat can put the fight back in his favor by getting top position and a takedown. So I think at this point, hopefully his bad fight IQ in the past will help him here. So I'm just hoping and praying that Sukumtat actually decides to utilize his strength here and does mix in takedowns with his striking and take Montargis out of his strong suit, because that's how Montargis lost against Smolka in his UFC debut. I mean, he was taken down, he got beat up on the ground, ended up getting submitted. So if Sukumtat, I'm not saying that he'll get a finish, but I definitely feel like if he gets takedowns, he'll be able to secure top position and maintain it and win rounds that way. And also just sway judges by mixing it up with takedowns and steady offense on the feet. So I'm going to go with Sukumtat. Now, moving up to the middleweight division, we have Jun Young Park, who is 9-3, taking on Anthony Hernandez, who is 7-1. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shipped it so far?
Hernandez open -230, the comeback on Park +170. Right now over at BetDSI, we're seeing Hernandez down at -161, Park at +134. And again, another spot where the dog got bet. Hernandez is the rightful favorite for sure, but I understand why people came in on Park early at that number. I mean, he's got a solid pre-fight resume from the UFC. Obviously he's making his UFC debut here. He's a power puncher. He's not really that fast, but he's accurate and powerful. He does have a nice lead jab that he basically is his range finder. And he has really good, dirty work in the clinch as well. So there's a lot to like about the Park. He is a heavy hitter, and that's what's going to be dangerous here for Hernandez. I think Hernandez is the better overall fighter. Hernandez does have some good offense. I think he's more capable on the ground a little bit as well. But if he gets sloppy defensively, then he can get in a little bit of trouble as well. And Park has enough power on the feet that he could test that a little bit. So I think this is going to be an interesting fight because both these guys like to stand and bang. Obviously, Hernandez is going to have a little bit of reach on him. He's, I believe, 2 inches. And this is kind of a striker versus striker matchup again as a whole. Outside of Hernandez having a little bit of submission skill, I think overall, both these guys do as well. I just think Hernandez's guillotine is a little bit more dangerous than anything these guys throw at each other. And I don't think Park submits Hernandez, but it's possible Hernandez might be able to get a sub on Park. So with all that said, I am leaning a little bit more towards Hernandez, but what I've seen defensively from him scares me a little bit with that much power coming from Park. So be cautious if you're touching this fight, but I'm going to pick Hernandez to get the win.
Yeah, watching these guys fight, they both clearly have talent. Park has some power, and he's beat some decent fighters, including a guy like Glenn Sparv and Ray Cooper, who went on to beat Jake Shields and is a PFL standout right now. But so Hernandez is going to have his hands full. That being said, Hernandez is actually pretty good against guys with strong striking technique because of the way he fights. He kind of likes to bull rush people with combinations and then just start winging strikes against them as they get back towards the fence. And it's played out to his favor pretty well. It helped him earn an opportunity with the UFC by taking out a strong karate fighter that had been undefeated. And then in his UFC debut, he was finding quite a bit of success against a better technical striker in Marcus Perez. But Hernandez also got himself in a little bit of trouble because he did eat some strikes and it eventually set up getting submitted. So that being said, this time around, I think Hernandez, while the striking, he's going to be at a technical disadvantage. I think he'll make up for that with his aggression and combinations. But where he actually could have a strong advantage is actually shooting for takedowns. I think he can put Park on his back. Hernandez is constantly looking for the clinch because he's always closing the distance with his striking. And if he can drag Park to the ground, I think that he actually could submit him. Also, if Park shoots in for a takedown, Hernandez has a pretty nasty guillotine choke. He's choked out 4 guys so far. So it's a very realistic possibility that Hernandez could tap him out. So I do think Park is dangerous, and he has the power to hurt Hernandez. And Hernandez, did get hurt with a body kick in his last fight. So and that set up a finish. So if Park does hurt him, he could put Hernandez away. But I think this is an opportunity for Hernandez to get that first UFC win. So I'm going to pick Hernandez. I think that his aggression and potentially his ground game could actually be to his benefit here. Now, moving on to the main card In the women's flyweight division, we have Yanin Wu, who is 10-2, taking on Mizuki Inoue, who is 13-5. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Wu opened minus 135, Inoue minus 105. And right now, what you're seeing over at BetDSI is Inoue minus 143, the comeback on Wu at plus 119. So line flipped. I mean, basically pick him with a little bit more action coming Inoue's way. I do think it's right. I mean, Inoue by far is a much better fighter, more technically sound across the board. I mean, she's faced the better competition as well throughout her career. I mean, she is just a very good, tested, battle-proven, still young. I believe she's only maybe 25 years old as well. So with all that experience coming into play here, I mean, you got to love Inoue in a lot of ways. I mean, if you watched her fights in Invicta, obviously, I mean, you're going to be impressed with the level of competition she's faced. And what I like about her is even if she's under fire and things aren't going the way she wants, maybe say in round one, she comes out with that look and that drive and desire to change things. I mean, she's going to be a fighter. No matter how much heat she's taking, damage she's taking, it doesn't change her resolve. Basically, she comes out there and she keeps her composure and she performs well every time. You know what you're getting with her. But the problem here against Wu is she's going to be undersized. I mean, obviously she's been fighting Inoue, has been fighting at 115 pounds. This is a fight at the flyweight division. Wu missed weight as well. Obviously, this is taking place right after the weigh-ins came out. So we know that Wu missed weight. Which is a shame. I mean, she was already going to be physically bigger with Inoue stepping up in weight class. Now she's going to be even bigger than that too, because Wu has fought at bantamweight in the past as well. So she's going to have that size. But really, that's the main advantage she has over her. I mean, she's going to be much bigger, stronger. She only has 1 pure inch reach advantage, which is interesting because she is going to be the taller fighter. And her best win by far has been the Mueller win that she's coming off of, which was a pretty slick win. I mean, it was a nice submission, but she was losing that fight up until that point as well. So Wu hasn't really, faced the level of competition that Inoue has. And she's not the fighter Inoue is, but I mean, her physical size and strength is going to be a problem. And she does have a little bit of power in the feet. And again, obviously she's capable of finishing fights on the ground. I don't think she's going to catch Inoue. I don't think she's going to hurt her on the feet either. If anything, she can have success maybe making this fight boring, slow it up a little bit, push her against a cage, maybe get top position as well and see how that goes for her. But overall, it's hard for me not to believe that Inoue, as the fight progresses, even if it's a little bit tight early on and maybe Wu's strength is coming into play early, as the fight progresses, Inoue is going to take over. And the technique and the level between the two is really going to show clear, I think, as it goes. And in a way, if she probably wins on the scorecards, maybe she gets a late finish here as well. So I'm going to side with the smaller fighter. But again, the caution in this fight is obviously the size difference here more than anything else. But outside of that, Inoue is the far better fighter, and I think she does get it done. So I understand why the action came in her way. She should be favored, and it still might be a little low, to be honest with you. So the pick is Inoue for me.
And I'm going to come in the other way. You have to remember, Inoue's coming into this fight on short notice. She's a weight class smaller, and even though she is the better technical fighter, I think that those size disadvantage and the short notice are going to be definitely against her. Yanin Wu is a pretty talented fighter. Watching her against Lauren Mueller, I was not expecting her to do nearly as well as she did. She was competitive on the feet, and then when it went to the floor, either she slipped or maybe Mueller caught her on the feet, but literally the second Mueller jumped on her, Wu was instantly in submission mode and wrapped her up in a tight armbar and forced a tap like before Mueller even knew what had happened almost. It was really impressive. So I definitely feel like in this fight, Wu is going to have a pretty sizable size advantage. I would expect her to be well over 20 pounds heavier than Inoue once they're both in the cage together. Wu's going to be 5 inches taller. She's somebody that's fought at bantamweight before, and Inoue is somebody that's pretty much spent her entire career at strawweight. Now, that's not to say that Inoue can't overcome that, because she is one of the better technical boxers in the women's strawweight division, and she's fought for the Invicta bantamweight or strawweight title. She's competed against the likes of Kalikas in Invicta. She's fought Alexa Grasso in Invicta, so she's been in there against some very talented fighters over the course of her career. But it also seems like when she faces those talented fighters that she ends up on the losing side of a decision. So I think even though Inoue is the better technical boxer, I think Yan and Wu actually has the ability to bully her here, just with her size, her strength. I think that she can press her into the cage. I think that she might be able to get takedowns. And I think Wu will be able to get a little bit going with her striking as well. Although if Inoue settles into her striking and like really relaxes and lets her hands go, I think Wu could get a little bit of trouble in open space. But I don't think it stays there consistently enough for Inoue to score enough points and sway the judges. I think Wu will be bullying her enough to get the judges to side with her, even though Inoue is the better technical fighter. So I'm excited that Inoue's in the UFC. I'm just not that happy that it's at 125 pounds on short notice. I would much rather see her at strawweight where she belongs. So my pick is going to be Yan and Wu. Now, moving up to the welterweight division, we have Keenan Song, who is 14-5, taking on Derek Krantz, who is 24-11. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Song open -135, the comeback on Krantz at -105. So -135, -105 to currently -110, -110 exactly a pick'em fight over at BetDSI. So a good one, a good fight. I mean, obviously Song's going to have some respect. I think the diehard MMA fans know Krantz more, despite him not, being, I guess, as familiar with the UFC, because he, came in, had that one fight on short notice or whatnot, and against Luque or whatever, and suffered that loss. But outside of the UFC, before he came here, Krantz, LFA vet, he's fought a lot of solid competition throughout the years, and we know what Krantz brings to the table, man. This guy is an experienced, well-rounded, again, fighter that honestly specializes in wrestling and grappling more so than anything else, but he has a little bit of power in the feet, and again, he has that savvy experience over solid competition. So the guy could go out here, Krantz, and really, even though he's not, again, specializing in striking, he can go out here and knock you out. I mean, he has enough knockout power in the feet to do some damage early on, or he's the type of fighter that can rock you, hop on a quick sub, and you're done. So he's got that finishing ability and quick like as well. He's been tested. He's been 5 rounds before. So there's a lot to like about Krantz. This matchup, though, for him is going to be difficult. It really is. I think Song presents a lot of problems for him. If Krantz can't go out there and blow him out within a minute or two, which it might be possible, I think that's what Song has to be careful here early on, is Krantz just is going to come out of the gate aggressive, and I think that's going to be his best path to victory, is actually coming in, doing some damage on Song, trying to get this fight to the ground and trying to submit him. Song has showed a lot of good takedown defense. He's the type of fighter, in my opinion, that only gets better fight by fight as well. And if you could see, I mean, how seriously he's taking his training. I mean, training in the Netherlands with Mike's gym. I mean, it's one of the best kickboxing gyms in the world. And then, of course, he's had some time with Greg Jackson and crew in Albuquerque, New Mexico as well. So he's been taking this serious. He's been training with great partners. He's elevated his game, and you could tell his striking's getting even better. He's always been a good striker. I mean, that's kind of what highlights him. He's a little bit busier on the feet, obviously, than Krantz as well. He's more accurate, and he's got that kind of knockout power that you got to love. But he's getting better as far as the ground game goes. His takedown defense, you could see the technique that he's utilizing and he's using. And even if you can get Song down, he bounces back up pretty quickly. So he's going to need to use that. He's going to have to step up his game to another level if he's going to want to be Krantz in this spot, especially on the ground. But I think Song's takedown defense is to the point where it's good enough right now that even if he gets taken down, I think he could probably survive and manage to get this fight back to the feet. And on the feet is where he's going to have success and probably finish Krantz. So I like what I see from Song. I mean, if Krantz cannot get him on the ground at all, he's going to be in some serious trouble, I think, and Song is going to get the knockout. But even if he can, I think Song survives it long enough to get the knockout anyway as it goes. So I think this is just going to be another, unfortunately, another knockout loss for Krantz. And I think Song's going to look good at some point eventually here in this fight. Even if it doesn't go well for him early on, I think he'll turn it on and he gets the job done. So my pick is Song. I know it's kind of unpopular out there. A lot of people I'm seeing kind of believing that Krantz gets this done, and maybe so, but in my opinion, Song is kind of taking the right steps and he's heading in the right direction. Where Krantz is kind of plateaued at this point of his career with all that experience and all that skill he has, I don't see him really getting better, where Song is going to continue to get better and improve. So I like Song.
And I'm going to go with Song as well. That being said, I was really impressed with Krantz's first minute and a half of his UFC debut. I mean, granted, he didn't make it out of the first round against Vicente Luque, but he had Luque in trouble. He went right after Luque, caught him off guard a little bit, cracked him on the feet, had him a little wobbly, and then took his back, had him in a dominant position. So, this is somebody that you can't sleep on, you can't underestimate, because he has some confidence in himself and he's aggressive. So if Song, is underestimating Krantz, he could wind up knocked out or tapped out in a hurry. So that's something I'm a little concerned about, honestly, because Luque is a much better fighter than Song, and Krantz almost took him out. That being said, once Luque, settled down, got back into a striking range, he was able to catch him pretty easily on the feet and then put him away. But Krantz definitely made him nervous for a little bit and made Luque fans nervous. So you have to respect that. Song, on the other hand, he's somebody that his first 2 UFC fights, he was able to get some impressive stoppage victories. He has a very quick, sharp, straight right hand that if it connects, he can get a stoppage against quite a few fighters. And then I thought that he would get the win in his last fight against Alex Morano, and ended up being a fight of the night type performance, but he ended up on the losing end of it. So I was disappointed with that one, because I thought that Song would be the superior fighter there and he'd get the job done, but it didn't happen. So this is a bounce back opportunity for Song. Him and Krantz both coming off of losses. Krantz is a quick starter, but I don't think Krantz has, an amazing gas tank, although that could be more because the fight was on such short notice. But I think as long as Song stays within himself, doesn't, let his guard down, doesn't get overwhelmed early, and doesn't, allow Krantz to catch him napping or anything, this is going to be an opportunity for Song to get another knockout. Krantz does not have the greatest chin. He's been he's lost 11 fights in his career overall, and at some point, I think Song connects with that big right hand and makes the Chinese crowd very, very happy. So Song is going to be my pick. I think he does win by knockout, probably near the end of the first or early in the second round. Now, dropping down to the flyweight division, we have Mark De La Rosa, who is 11-2. Taking on Kai Kara France, who is 19-7. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Kara France open minus 320, De La Rosa plus 240. And right now over at BetDSI, Kara France minus 217, De La Rosa down to plus 178. So early action coming in, De La Rosa. Understand it. Again, those you guys are getting those early numbers out there. You guys are getting some pretty decent lines, and it's going to work out well for you if you guys keep on picking off the market like that, especially with the lines that are getting put out that are sky high like this originally. So, well done with that. Win or lose again. You're getting some definite line value, like we said. So, that said, this is going to be a good fight, and De La Rosa has a path to victory here, and it's on the ground. He's definitely got the better ground game. On the feet, he's not bad. He's definitely a person that's capable of being effective, delivering some good damage on the feet as well, and being an exciting fighter to watch. But in this matchup against Kara France, make no mistake, De La Rosa is going to want to get this fight to the floor, and he's going to want to try to sub him and utilize his strength, which is a ground game. On the feet, France is the better striker. By far, he's going to be able to, I think, land you a lot more damage. He's actually 2 inches shorter, but he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. And that's a little bit weird to deal with. Sometimes you don't gauge the distance correctly when you're seeing that kind of scenario play out. So, that's kind of a little mini advantage for France as well with that little reach advantage. So with all that said, it's basically it comes down to, can France stay off the ground long enough, to, do what he does best and outstrike De La Rosa either to a finish or a decision win. I think he can. I'm going to pick him to win, but again, at the betting window, you cannot. Styles make fights, and with De La Rosa having a path to victory, even though it's going to be a tough one because France is not the easiest guy to control and take down, but we have seen it in the past, and he has lost to good grapplers in the past as well. It's there. So it's a dog or pass situation. Do not lay the chalk. France has looked good. He's gotten better for sure through the years. He's another one of these guys that improves leaps and bounds, but I still think as far as complete MMA game goes, De La Rosa is a little bit farther ahead of him right now. So with that said, that's why I don't think you can lay the chalk here. I do expect France to probably get it done, but I wouldn't be shocked if De La Rosa is able to pull this off either. So again, it's a dog or pass situation here in this spot, but I'm going to pick France to win because I do like to see, I like what I see in his improvements. I think he's gotten to the point where he's not easy to take down, and he's ground savvy enough that he gets out of bad spots, and he's gotten better in that aspect. Now let's see if it's good enough to beat De La Rosa here. We'll see. But my pick is going to be France.
Yeah, this will definitely be a bit of a striker versus grappler battle. France is by far the better striker here. I mean, De La Rosa can go on the feet, but against a technically sound striker like Kaikar or France, he's going to be in some serious trouble. France has this beautiful overhand right that, I mean, can really just crack an opponent. And he can find his distance. He has a good straight left jab. And he also mixes it up with, body kicks and low leg kicks. He can do spinning attacks. This is a guy with a solid overall, well-rounded game, very dangerous striker. And, but that being said, Mark De La Rosa is pretty strong on the ground. He has a decent wrestling game. He has a strong top position, and he has a pretty good, submission game. So what's going to happen here is it's going to be a battle between France wanting to keep it upright and trying to knock De La Rosa's block off, and De La Rosa wanting to put France on his back and either ride out a decision from top position or look for the submission. So, really interesting battle that's going to be happening in this fight. But you do have to remember that Kaikar France has spent the majority of his career in Asia refining his game. So this is going to be almost like a home court advantage for him in China because he spent so much time on this end of the world. De La Rosa will be out of his element a little bit. I think Kaikar France will have the crowd behind him as well. But that being said, if De La Rosa can get takedowns, he could win this fight. So I'm not counting him out. But I do think that France is going to be able to do some serious damage on the feet. And that will obviously force De La Rosa to shoot for takedowns, but it may force him to do it earlier than he was hoping to do it too. So I'm going to side with France. I think he gets the job done on the feet. I think he might be able to knock De La Rosa out as well. But I'm definitely a little nervous about the takedowns because, again, even though France is pretty decent defensively, he was put on his back a couple times in his UFC debut, and he didn't exactly easily get back up. So against somebody with a pretty strong top game, I will be nervous heading into this one by picking France. Now, moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we have Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, who is 21-5, taking on Jingling Li, who is 16-5. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Dos Santos open minus 285. The comeback on Lee at plus 205. Right now, what you're seeing over at BetDSI is Zaleski Dos Santos minus 286. The comeback on Lee at plus 229. So line margins have tightened up. 2 action in this fight. Looks like a line holding steady. Decent line set overall. And I think it's about right as far as I know that Lee gets a lot of respect and he deserves so. I mean, the guy's faced some really good competition, and he is definitely one of the best UFC fighters out of that region for sure on the roster, Lee is. And he's accomplished a lot thus far. And I mean, you gotta love when he fights because he brings it every time. I mean, the guy has knockout power on the feet, and he's an exciting fighter. I mean, nasty knockout power. He mixes things up well. So you gotta be cautious with Lee. I mean, he does have a well-rounded game, but of course, again, it's all really highlighted by his striking skill. Now, he gets top position on the ground. He can be very dangerous from ground and pound as well. So I like what I see with Lee. And again, every time he fights, you know it's going to be fireworks. And with this fight against Zaleski Dos Santos, of course it's going to be fireworks. Both these guys like to stand and bang. Both these guys obviously have a ground game as well, but their striking is where it's at here. And that's where I think Lee's going to come into trouble here, because I think defensively speaking, I mean, obviously both are flawed a little bit, but I think Dos Santos is going to be the one that's really getting through a little bit more, doing more damage overall as a whole. I think I like the diverse skill set he has on the feet again. On the ground, I think he's a little bit more capable as well as far as submission skill goes and ability. So I just think he's going to be a step ahead of Lee everywhere this fight takes place. So that's why around a 3-1 favorite in this fight over a solid person like Lee. From what we've seen from both guys right now, I think Dos Santos deserves to be there because to me, this is going to be quite an upset if Lee pulls it off. Because at this point, with the momentum Dos Santos has and the improvements that he showed in his game overall, Lee should not win this fight. I mean, it's just a big step up for Lee, even though he's faced a lot of solid competition. I just don't think he's going to be ready for Zaleski Dos Santos at this spot. I think Zaleski Dos Santos can actually finish him. If he doesn't finish him, then he probably edges it out on the scorecards. Might be competitive, 29-28 type of decision win, but Dos Santos should get it done. So at the betting window, obviously, I mean, if you're looking at it right now, if the line drops a little bit more, and it could, by the time the fight kicks, we could see some dog action coming in on Lee because he should get, obviously continue to get some respect. If that's the case, then maybe throw Zaleski Dos Santos in a parlay the other way. But overall, I think the line's holding steady where it is, and it's about right. So the pick for me is Dos Santos to get the W.
And I'm going to side with Zaleski Dos Santos as well. I mean, this is a one-sided fight. Honestly, Zaleski Dos Santos, he's been needing to fight a top 5 opponent for a really long time now, and it just continues to not happen. I mean, this guy is currently on a 7-fight win streak in the UFC welterweight division. That is ridiculous, and he's still not getting matched up against top 10 fighters. I understand that they need to keep him busy, and maybe they're not materializing, but it's time for him to be tested because even though he's on a 7-fight win streak, he really hasn't faced a top 15 guy yet. I mean, Curtis Millender was on a nice little roll, and he was rising star potentially in the division. But I mean, Zaleski Dos Santos made just immediate quick work of him, took him out in his last fight in halfway point of the first round by submission. And it's not like he's struggling either. I mean, Zaleski Dos Santos, his last 4 fights he has won, or his last 3 fights he's won by stoppage. Sean Strickland, Luigi Vendramini, and Millender. So, this is a guy that is taking care of business against people that are not in the top 15. So, it's time for him to get a better level competition. And unfortunately, that's just not Jingling Lee. Lee is somebody that I respect. He's a fighter that when he debuted in the UFC, he was more of a straight grappler that was just taking advantage of being a lot bigger and stronger than most welterweights, and he'd drag them to the ground. His nickname was the Leech because he'd just hook onto you and and he wouldn't let go. But now he's actually a bit of a dangerous striker. He has some serious knockout power, and realistically, that is his lone path to victory here. I mean, unless he clips Zaleski Dos Santos right in the chin and knocks him straight out, I don't see how he could possibly win. And I understand that he's actually done pretty well as well. Lee has won 6 of his last 7 fights, but I still feel like the skill differential between Zaleski and Lee is so vast. It just makes it seem like this fight's unfair. Even though you have a 7-fight win streak against 6 out of 7, it doesn't really make sense why this fight was matched up, other than the fact that they both have been successful in their last 7 fights. Because, in my opinion, Zaleski is about a top 7 welterweight on the planet, and Lee is still not, even top 25 probably. So, I think Zaleski wins any way he wants, as long as he doesn't get cocky and get caught on the chin with a haymaker, because Lee does have fight-ending power, but Zaleski should win this fight relatively handily. So Zaleski's going to be my pick. Now moving on to the main event of the evening in the women's strawweight division for the championship, we have the belt holder Jessica Andrade, who is 20-6, taking on Weili Zhang, who is 19-1. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Andrade open -200, the comeback on Zhang +170. And right now what you're seeing over at BetDSI is currently -179 for Andrade, the comeback on Zhang at +155. So line mergers up. This line dropped all the way down to $150-ish or so, and now it's climbing back up towards 200. So it's been bouncing between there off and on. So there is 2 actually coming into this fight as well. Pre-fight, pre-research and digging back in, obviously we all know, I mean, both of these ladies really well. I mean, the diehards that watch UFC week to week, but it is good to get refreshers and go back through and watch footage and see what you missed at times as well. Like on the night of the fights, we all watch, but we're not watching as close as doing research, of course. So going back through, reviewing some of the fights, seeing some of the skills that you kind of forget about with certain fighters. This happened to me here in this case with Zhang. I mean, I was more impressed going back through the footage with Zhang than I was originally, obviously, last time I went through or whatnot too. It reminded me how really good she is in this spot here. Because what I'm saying that is Andrade to me, it's a no-brainer. She should be favored in this spot here. I mean, if she's she's a rightful champion. She has the skill to be wearing that throne for a long time. I mean, overall, she's just such an aggressive, strong, powerful, dangerous. She can knock you out on the feet, just slams you on the ground, of course. I mean, she's just a devastating fighter. A lot of people can't take her power and the pressure she puts on you and the pace that she puts on you as well. They can't handle it. But of course, we've seen her have some issues recently with some of the longer, better strikers in their division, like JJ or like Rose was doing pretty well against her as well, utilizing that length and the striking advantage that they have over her. But this is a different matchup completely in Andrade. And I thought to myself, oh man, Andrade is going to easily take this fight. But going through it, this is going to be a lot tougher than I originally thought for sure, because Zhang, strength for strength. I mean, Andrade is obviously going to be the stronger fighter of the two, but Zhang is a strong fighter. She's capable of doing some great things in the octagon already against solid competition that she's faced. So with that said, I think that, I mean, as far as a power edge goes, Andrade isn't just going to maybe not bully her as much as she does some of the other fighters. I mean, she has that capability against most people in most competition, of course, on Andrade, but Zhang in the power edge is not going to be a slouch, put it that way. And then as far as the skill set on the feet goes, I think Zhang is actually a little bit technically better than Andrade overall. Zhang hits hard. She mixes things up. She blends in some really good kicks along with that as well. So she's the better striker on the feet. Andrade is the more capable one-punch knockout artist, though. I mean, she could deliver that one blow that might get through and might, drop Zhang on the floor, too. I mean, Zhang has a little bit of pop in her punches, don't get me wrong, but I still think Andrade, when she pushes a high pace and pushes forward and kind of closes that gap and gets that distance in check, she can be very capable of ending things, obviously, on the feet as well. So Andrade has it in her. This is going to go back and forth on the feet a little bit. Andrade is going to be the one that is able to bully her down on the ground as well. Zhang has some really good takedown defense, but I don't think she's going to probably make it without getting taken down in this fight. But again, that's what worries me with Zhang as well, because her submission game on the ground is a bit underrated. I mean, we've seen that awesome quick armbar that she landed on Jessica Aguilar not too long ago, so she has that type of skill set in her as well. And Andrade in the past, her submission defense has been a little flawed. Now, higher weight classes, of course, and as she's moved down in weight, Andrade has looked amazing, and you could tell her conditioning, everything about her game has improved to another level. So I know that she's better than early on in her career when she was kind of falling into submission traps, but that does worry me here as well, because I think Andrade probably will get this fight to the ground, and she's going to have to be aware that Zhang is slick on the ground and she might be able to do, pull something off her back, honestly. So, or get back to her feet and then scramble back up and get a good position here. So this is going to be closer than I originally thought, but it's hard not to side with Andrade still at this point, because again, she is the rightful champion. The power that she has is unlike anybody else we've seen at this weight class yet. I mean, when she delivers, she does some serious damage. And again, with being able to control where the fight takes place and bullying people to the ground and then delivering the kind of punishment that she does on the ground, hard not to like Andrade. But what I'm saying all this for is that the betting window right now, I understand kind of why it's floating back and forth, because there's going to be some sharp action coming in both ways. Sharp action already came in, bet Zhang down a little bit. Sharp action is coming back in on Andrade, betting up it a little bit as well. So there are split sharp opinions on both sides of this fight, and there will continue to be two-way action coming in on this fight as well as it goes up until bell, really. So this is going to be intriguing for sure. I'm going to pick Andrade to win, but at the betting window, it went from possibly liking Andrade to me to kind of staying away from it and seeing how this fight plays out, to be honest with you. I know that's not what a lot of you guys like to hear at times, but it's the truth. This is going to be a pretty good fight that's going to be competitive, and I mean, Zhang could very well be a live dog, and like I said, originally I wasn't thinking that she would be in this spot, but you got to respect her, got to respect what she's done lately, and of course, Andrade has been a beast, so I am leaning her way, and I think she does get it done, but got to be cautious out there. So the pick for me is Andrade.
And I'm right with you. And I also agree that I think people are underestimating Zhang a little bit. Going back and watching her perform, she has a really nice mixture of aggressive kicking action. She spins a lot. She has some power in her hands. She's an aggressive striker that throws a lot of significant strikes. and she mixes in takedowns, and she's very physically strong for the division. I don't know if she's quite as strong as Andrade, who I think is just an absolute powerhouse in the division, but I think that she'll at least be able to force a few stalemates at times along the fence. I think Zhang's best path to victory is to really take away Andrade's base. Zhang should really go after her legs, go after Andrade's core, with just repeated leg kicks and body kicks, and just try to slow her down. If she does that, I think that'll set up opportunities for head kicks, for combinations at the head, potentially, just get Andrade hurting a little bit, slow her down, maybe even get top position along the way. Zhang does have some decent takedowns, but my biggest issue is most of the time she likes to go for head and arm throws, and those are very unreliable to get a successful takedown and remain in top position without your opponent rolling over on top of you. Zhang's best takedowns are probably getting a trip. So if she can do that against Andrade, that'd be great. Andrade is a little vulnerable off of her back if she does get put there. So I could see Zhang having some success from top position. But the main thing she can't do is she can't let Andrade get inside against her, because I think Andrade could take her for a ride with a big slam like she did against Namajunas when she knocked her out. Andrade obviously also is a very aggressive striker, and even though she doesn't have a lot of reach, if she can get going and start throwing combinations and start connecting, Andrade becomes very dangerous. It's really only against people that can utilize their reach and distance that can stifle Andrade, like Rose did in the first round and a half against her most recently, and obviously Joanna Jędrzejczyk was able to do that for 5 straight rounds in a title defense against Andrade. So Zhang's going to have her work cut out for her if she wants to have some success on the feet, because Andrade, if you cannot keep solid, quick, straight strikes in her face, she will be able to close the distance and really make it a lot uglier than you want. So I think Zhang's going to make a fight out of it, but I think there's just a few too many things that she needs to have go right for her to win. And I think Andrade eventually just overwhelms Zhang, and maybe 3rd, 4th round gets a TKO victory just as Zhang starts to slow down. So my pick's going to be Andrade. I think she gets the job done. I think she retains the women's strawweight championship. So that'll do it for our full event breakdown for UFC on ESPN Plus 15. If we have a free play to give out, make sure to follow at MMAOB Premium on Twitter, because that's where we'll post them first. We can also notify you for free bets via email alert if you prefer that method. Just send an email to picks@MMAOddsBreaker.com and we'll add you to our free bet mailing list. Special thanks to BetDSI. Good luck, everyone, and hopefully the betting gods are on your side this weekend.